On this episode, I have the mic in my hand because I got irritated at the end and I ripped it off, and then I had to do the intro. This real estate stuff is not easy, so send me your questions and I will answer them. This is the Ask Jason Show. Hello everybody, my name is Jason Piercey and this is episode 64 of the Ask Jason. Does it say show? No, it doesn't. Today's question is, should I hire a realtor who's really busy or should I hire one who's not? And why? What are the pros and cons? Well, there's gonna be two sides to each of these coins. If you hire somebody who's really busy, they're probably really busy because they're pretty good at what they do. They built a reputation, they built a brand, and now people are lining up to work with them and they're successful. And they become successful and get all this business to some degree because they're good at what they do. The downside, and what I think some people might be thinking about, is, well, I want personal touch. I want a response to my text message. I want my phone call to be answered. I want that level, that elite level of personal service. And I understand both sides of that coin. Let's look at the other option. Let's look at hiring somebody who is not particularly busy, and maybe they only do a half a dozen or 10 deals a year, which, by the way, is still above average. You hire somebody who's not super busy because you want that personal touch. You want to be their top priority. You want that care. You want your hand to be held through the process. Maybe you're a first-time home buyer. Maybe you've never sold anything before. Or maybe you're just generally a very relationship-based person who wants that close feeling, wants that handheld hug the whole way. That is perfectly okay. But also, if they're not particularly busy, maybe they're not particularly busy because they just don't do a lot of business. Director Joe is a good example of this. Joe does a fair amount of real estate, but he doesn't do as much as I do, or as much as some of the top producing realtors in the city. And it's not because he's not good at it, it's because he has a passion and loves some of these other things. So we divvy up the time where everybody in our partnership, where everybody's skill sets get used to their optimum value. So in his case, not doing 60 deals a year has nothing to do with his ability to be an excellent realtor. It's a personal choice to have other extracurricular things. But sometimes you don't have a lot of business because you can't get a lot of business. I want to elaborate for a second on people who don't do a lot of business and why they don't do a lot of business. Because it is entirely possible to have been a top producing realtor in and around our market for the last 20 years. But in the last 2 or 3 years, sort of trailed off a bit because our market went in a place that you weren't accustomed to. Marketing and attention grasp shifted to an area that you might not have been accustomed to. So it's a little harder to upstart again. That doesn't mean that any of these people who have been forces in our industry aren't capable of handling your deal. They're some of the most talented, successful, and respectable professionals in the Newfoundland and Labrador Association of Realtors. They just don't know how to lead generate right now. And that's okay. Maybe they're gonna retire in a couple of years. They can if they want. It's no big deal. It doesn't mean that they're not good enough to handle your business. It just means that they're not busy because they're just haven't figured out how to be busy in 2018, 2019, even the 2017 world. So how do you make the decision on whether you want somebody who's busy or want somebody who isn't? Well, that's a very, very personal decision. It's a personal decision on what you want to accomplish in the process, and it's a personal decision based on the relationship that you want to experience. For instance, I'm a super busy guy, or at least I make it look like I'm super busy. Joe and I do this. We do real estate. I've got an entrepreneurship coaching thing. I do Out of the Fog, and we partner on like all of these things. So I appear to be doing a whole bunch of stuff. But that's because we just go through the process of documenting the things that we're doing. So we appear to be everywhere. That doesn't mean I'm too busy for your real estate. This happened to me at hockey, actually. And I might have told you this just the other day. I always say the other day, like it was actually the other day, but it was probably like March or something. Anyway, it was a while ago. He asked me how business was, and I was like, oh man, it's great, I'm super busy. And then I found out like 2 months later that he bought a house with someone else. And I was like, dude, congratulations on your house. Just curious, because I want to be better at what I'm doing. Why was I not in the running to be your guy? And he was like, oh, well, you said you were really busy, and I figured I'd give somebody else a shot. My fault, totally my fault, because I created the wrong impression. People who are busy, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're too busy for your stuff. So I answer that question differently now. Now I'm like, oh man, I'm having a lot of fun. I absolutely love everything that I do. There's no wolf at the door, but if you know anyone who wants to buy or sell or invest in real estate, I'd love to give them a hand. So that's the same answer. It's just now I'm letting them know that I still want the business. Because I do. Everybody's business, all of the time. Actually, that's not true. That would be too much. Can you imagine trying to do every deal? There's like 2,500 to 2,800 deals that'll get done in and around St. John's. Can you imagine trying to do all of them? Be insane. Here's the plus side to working with somebody who's really busy. My grandfather used to always say, you want something done, give it to a busy man. And you know what? He was right. Because when I'm not really active, when I'm not doing a bunch of different things, my mental health gets wonky and depression sets in, and I feel, you got that whole, you lose your motivation. Like, some people need fire. Like, activity creates activity, and it pushes them, and that's a grind. Like, that's a hustle that feeds more and more energy. And maybe some people aren't like that. But to me, giving something to somebody who's really active increases the likelihood that it gets done. Also, on the flip side of that, there's the stereotype of the realtor that doesn't return calls, doesn't answer phones, but find one that has a system in place. Joe and I made a big move a little while ago to get ourselves a virtual assistant to handle some of the things that, some of the paperwork related stuff and organizational stuff and some of the calling and scheduling that I would have been slipping on because I was busy doing some other stuff. And now it's never been better for my clients. So you can find somebody who can handle all of this stuff. But what it really comes down to is don't hire somebody because they're busy and don't hire somebody because they're not. Hire them because you trust them. That's literally the end. This means end. It doesn't mean, it means that's it. There's nothing else. You hire someone because you trust them. And I can't tell you how to do that. That's right there. That's it. That's it for today. Yeah. T-R-U-S-T. Find out what it means to me. That was the worst. T-R-U-S-T. Find out what it means to me. Dressing. You make me feel like a natural woman. No, that might not even be Aretha Franklin. I don't know. Damn it, Jim. I'm a realtor, not a music historian. Can this be over now? You make me... That's in my head now. All right, I'm out. Peace. The Ask Jason Show exists so that you can get good real estate related information from a resource that you can trust. Now, speaking of resources you can trust, here's a couple I would trust to work with my mom. Because good enough for mom, good enough for you.